And Anthony, you can take it away.
Thank you, Miles. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for the global audience that you hear today.
Yes.
My name is Anthony, and I would like to start this webinar with just a quick introduction to Omnex. I'm joined with Craig. Omnex is a global organization in the industry of business and quality management system, transforming organization in the last 35 years. We are 16 global offices. We are in part of the writing committee of many of the standard, as many of you know here. We're very global. Go on to the next slide. These are some of the global offices. These are the six key markets that we focus: automotive, aerospace, semiconductor, medical devices, electric and autonomous, and general manufacturing. Many of you here today are from probably representing the aerospace industry. Next slide, please. Some of the services that we offer as part of coaching and mentoring programs, we help with gap assessment, training, implementation, coaching, certifications, assessments, and also the digital software. Next slide, please.
Yeah, some of the plan tech stuff, and I'll take over for a second here. Some of the plan tech stuff that we do, we offer auditing services, whether it's internal audits, supplier audits, different things like that. We also offer supplier services, helping with supplier development, monitoring, any kind of sourcing type of issues. We also have product and process related services, as well as we offer quality staffing for QE and quality positions and things like that as well. So,
Craig, continue please on the slides. My screen is all frozen a little bit here. Why don't you get to the topic? Yeah.
There. Okay. There we go. So we've all kind of seen how the AS9100 standard has changed over the last few years. The new revisions are already in work and being discussed. So one of the new things that's out there that's covered in AS9100 is a lot of the risk implementation. And we want to talk today about how to implement AS9145, which you probably know is the APQP standard for the aerospace industry. We're going to talk about using a digital approach for some of that development as far as implementing your AS9145 program and some of those things. So we're going to talk about some of the best-in-class digital platforms that are out there and that we have, as well as talk a little bit about AS9145, what it is, how it addresses the risks, and how it is really suited to be fully integrated with your AS9100 system. So I do have a poll question. And I'm just trying to see how familiar you are with the AS9145. Whether it's, brand new to you, whether you've heard about it, you've implemented already, you've floated down to your suppliers, not really, to the degree to which it's done, but just how familiar you are with what AS9145 is. Okay, so it looks like kind of like a lot of you, a little over half, are not really familiar with AS9145, which is fine. We're going to talk a little bit about AS9145 today. We do other webinars and other classes on AS9145 specifically. So today we're going to talk a little bit about it. It's not as in-depth. We are kind of limited on time. But I do want to, So the first thing that you have to think about when you're thinking about AS9145 is that AS9100 requires that risk-based thinking. And this is where it all kind of stems from. So our traditional process thinking about risk, and we've all been through this, don't do anything wrong today, don't do anything wrong tomorrow, and then repeat. Right? But actually the AS9100 process, there's actually a process for managing risk within the standard itself. Right? Establishing that context in the organization from the beginning, identifying risks, whether it's in the planning stages, it's in the processing, the production, the support processes. They all have various types of risks at varying degrees. Then you also have to analyze that risk, evaluate it, and then put in some treatment or some mitigating actions around those. Right? And the reason I start with the risk is because really that's what AS9145 is all about, is developing those tools to help mitigate those risks or take actions to do different things, right? So what we need to know about managing risk. Well, it's not about stopping the risk. Right? Risk by definition, you're not going to be able to stop it. You really need to understand it, prioritize it, how to control it better, right? Risk management also gives you that transparency, right? Identify the measures and the impact. How's it going to impact us? Is it going to hit us in the profitability side? Is it going to hit us in the production and efficiency side? And it also helps, that transparency helps you improve your processes. Right? Risk management also gives you that accountability, helps with the good decisions, helps prompt responses for potential outcomes. And good risk management also helps reduce the risk. Putting in those mitigating actions helps bring that risk level down, helps bring down the impact, the severity, how often things occur, right? And it really aligns with those business strategies, right? The more risks you can identify up front and as early as possible, the better strategic decisions you can make for your organization. So with that being said, you can see these are the different places within AS9100 or ISO, either one, that specifically talk about the different types of risks. Okay. So if we put those together with the plan, do, check, act cycle, you can also see where the different clauses from AS9100 fit into that AS9100 or for the plan, do, check, act cycle, but also how AS9145 APQP program also incorporates with the standard and with the same plan, do, check, act. So you can see phase one, which of APQP, which is planning, ties directly into clauses 8.1 and 8.2, which are also planning. I kind of like this graphic because it ties in all of AS9100 as well as all of AS9145 in a real brief nutshell, to be able to show top management, lower level employees, how this all fits together. So we do have an aerospace APQP model, right? There's 5 different phases. You have the planning phase. You also have phase 2, which is product design and development. Not everybody within aerospace is responsible for product design. There is a lot of build to print shops, but everybody will have phase 3, right? Which is process design and development. And then you also have phase 4, which is where you validate your product and you validate your processes, whether it's through inspection, it's through testing, it's through monitoring. And then you have phase 5, which is where you launch it to full production. It's really the feedback loop as well, right? To get that evaluation, do your analysis, and put any kind of corrective actions in. Right. So the aerospace APQP model, like I said, has 5 phases. There's 48 different elements or defining activities that come out of those 5 phases. And each one has some key deliverables. We're not going to get fully into all of those today. We are going to talk about the highlighted ones because that's a lengthier discussion if we get really into AS9145 in a lot more depth. It's a little detailed, more in discussion than we have limited time for today. But AS9145 is the Aerospace APQP standard. If you are wondering, APQP stands for Advanced Product Quality Planning. Whether it's planning for a production part or it's planning for a process, it is just that advanced product quality planning. Right? So the intent of AS9145, the reason that they brought it out there, automotive has been using APQP for decades now, and they've gotten very good at it. Aerospace has finally seen the light, for lack of a better word, that they need to have some sort of a program around these same types of things because they've seen how good the tools actually work. So really what AS9145 does is it provides that approach for making sure your products meet all of your customer requirements, whether it's on-time delivery, fit, form, and function, help drive those costs down. Because, customers always want the same three things, right? They want their product on time. They want it to cost as low, least amount of money as possible. And it also needs to make sure it works when they get it. It also helps ensure common requirements are used throughout all levels of the organization, right? So that everybody understands exactly what the customer needs, whether it's process-based at a specific process or whether it's product-based. And that also goes for your internal customers as well, right? So having those common requirements across all the levels is very effective. So some of the applicability, everybody always wants to know, one of the questions everybody has is, well, does AS9145 actually apply to what we do? Okay. So it's for new product development. It can be also applied to products that are currently in production. You may have been making it for the last 15 years and you make a couple hundred of them a month. You can still use the same process, it would still apply. You can do it by family of parts. You can do it by family of processes. There's lots of different ways that you can do it. You can also apply it to products where you've been making it, it kind of got put on the shelf for a few years, and now you're dusting it off, making a few changes, and you want to start producing it again. It would also apply to those as well. The only thing it really does not apply to was really the commercial off-the-shelf items. A good example is like Fastenal, standardized nuts and bolts, when you can just go to a catalog and say, hey, I need 2,000 of those rivets right there. Right. So those types of things it doesn't really apply to. Okay. Now, within AS9145, you can flow it down to your suppliers as well. You can flow this through the supply chain. Right. So talk a little bit about the integration. Right. Kind of like this picture. This product kind of comes from my military background, but right, when it talks about integration, none of us almost joined, right? You're either you're in or you're not, right? So you can't go halfway on this. Either you integrate it or you don't. I strongly suggest that you do integrate it because AS9145 is coming, right? It's not a full-on auditable requirement yet, but it's fairly close to that point. So what I want to talk about here is you see the different phases for AS9145 at the top. You have the planning, product and design development, process design development, your product and process verification, and your production side. But you notice how I tied in the clauses with AS9100. So these different phases are a really good avenue for making sure you have that objective evidence, or that you are able to demonstrate to auditors or customers that you meet all these requirements. You'll notice it covers all of Clause 8. So all of your product realization processes. And it also covers your monitoring and measuring, your non-conformance and corrective action, as well as continual improvement. So you can see it addresses pretty much from clause 8 to clause 10 pretty much covers all of the standard within AS9145 in some form or fashion. So having an AS9145 APQP program is also not only beneficial to the strategic direction of your organization and how you're going to accomplish all your customer requirements and produce good product on time, zero defects, but it also helps you with demonstrating to an auditor during your registration audits or your customer audits on how you meet aspects of the AS9100 standard. Okay. So another thing that it does, the AS9145 does, is it helps make sure that you have that dynamic linkage all the way from the voice of the customer all the way through to your work instructions on the shop floor. Right? It starts with the design FMEA and then flows all the way through actual work instructions. And the other big thing is it helps you manage your manufacturing risk, right? There's all sorts of risks in each process step some have a high number of risks involved, some are a low number of risks involved. Now, even though there's a low number of risks, the actual impact of those risks could be a lot higher than some of the other ones that have 9 or 10 documented risks with it. Right? So having this APQP program helps you manage all of those risks in a very structured, systematic manner. So I have this here as I labeled it my halfway there slide, right? So we talked about those 5 phases. We talked about all the clauses. The stuff down there in red at the bottom really shows stuff that we all do in aerospace. We've been doing all this stuff for years, right? We do contract review. We do feasibility. Can we actually make what the customer wants? We look at those customer requirements and we create bill of materials. That's a lot of the outputs from phase 1, which is planning. So we're already doing a number of these items that you have to do with AS9145. AS9145 really just puts some structure around things we're already doing. That is really, in a nutshell, it's all it's going to do for us. We're doing it, but you notice all these items down here in red, whether it's bill of materials, key characteristics, measurement results, these are spread throughout our organization. Multiple different people or keeping multiple different files. And, quality usually keeps the inspection results or the test results somewhere. Purchasing is going to keep their requirements in a certain thing. What AS9145 does is bring all that communication together. So it helps document a lot of that tribal knowledge that everybody hangs on to and puts it out there for all the different parties to know and to learn from. Right? It also includes AS9102, which is your first article. Aerospace has been using AS9102 for quite a few years now. It is one of the things that you have to do. It is one of the actual requirements that goes into AS9145 as part of your PPAP package. So I do have a second poll that I want to come up with. So based on some of the stuff we talked about, I want you to keep that in mind when you answer this poll question. Have you already begun to implement AS9145? So one of the things that I've noticed when I've helped organizations put their AS9145 programs together is one of the big comments that everybody kind of has that aha moment is like, we're already doing a lot of this stuff, right? So that's what I was putting this poll together for, is based on what we talked about. Have you guys already started doing this? Okay, so it's split, right, about half, so which is good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over to Anthony now. Anthony's going to give us a little bit on the digitalization, software ideas, things like that, different platforms you can use as far as digitalization goes to help you with the implementation of this type of a program. So Anthony, I will let you take it over.
Thank you, Craig. So the second part of this presentation, we're going to just talk a little bit about implementing AS9145 through a digitalization. The word digitalization is used when you are able to use, technologies of the web, artificial intelligence, and cloud, mobility, all that to implement AS9145, and how does it drive value for you, how it helps and facilitates the implementation. Craig, why don't you just talk a little bit about the challenges without digitalization and what you have experienced in the past when you tried to implement AS9145 without digitalization?
Yes, these are some of the big challenges that are out there. It's always been, the norm, right? And we all know from aerospace, a lot of you probably have quality backgrounds. But if the word quality is in the title of anything, it therefore falls into a quality function, and quality is responsible for doing it. Okay. So one of the things that digitalization helps with is making it a cross-functional team. It forces organizations to utilize the team they have rather than being a siloed function. Right? Manufacturing and program management, it's not always involved in the beginning of the process, right? In the planning or the quoting or the development. So using that digitalization, it forces some of those interactions to actually happen a lot sooner. A lot of times doing it manually, some of the interfaces or sequencing between the different tools and forms and things that you need as part of your APQP program gets to be rather cumbersome and exhaustive when you're doing it manually. And also it makes it a lot harder to flow it down to your suppliers or identify your suppliers' risk. And then one of the biggest things that it really helps with as far as digitalization goes is reviewing your APQP or your PPAP to make sure everything is in there, all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted. Because when you have a drawing, because we've all seen some of those aerospace drawings that have 300 to 500 items on the drawing, right? So trying to do a manual review of that to make sure you've covered everything in some of your PPAP documentation takes hours, if not days, right? A digitalization platform really helps speed that thing up. It's really a big cost saving. But one of the biggest things is the digitalization helps with is that communication and understanding of the project. So Anthony, I will let you continue on.
All right. So thank you, Craig. So we're going to go into the live presentation of the software here. So this, imagine a digitalized platform that's either on your server or it's on cloud, depending on how your overall ID strategy is. So if you are a quality manager or a program manager managing the AS9145 implementation, you'll be able to see everything that you need for right in this landing page. You could look at all your documents that you need for approval. Your dashboards are here. The actions that you have to do for the day is right here. Any programs that you're working on is available here. And you can open, let's say, for example, the program. And, Craig talked about the 5 phases, of implementation of the AS9145. So if you look at the 5 phases, you can have all these programs managed through the system. So I have a program that could have many projects underneath that. You could open each of these projects to see, what is the overall status of the project, what is the actions that's being completed, what deliverables are pending, any documents and attachments that you need associated to that project, you will be able to see. Okay. Now, any project risk can be identified, so you're mitigating the risk as you go through this new product development. Also, the off-the-shelf products that are PPAP, you would also be able to have all those PPAP deliverables managed through the system, right? Now, if you notice here, I also have like the DFMEA's process flows, PFMEA's control plans. They're all live linked. For a user who's working on this project, they only have to click on that link. It'll take you right into the DFMEA or PFMEA. You could have meetings. So if you have review meetings or recurring review meetings, you can schedule it. The agenda will be available for you. Software will automatically send meeting notices to teams to let them remind them about the meeting and so on. You could see in dock this a little bit here. You could see the overall timeline, the documents that you have identified or that's been uploaded. The software will help you manage all the revision control, the change control of all the documents. So you have inputs and outputs. The input documents could be the templates that you're using today in the organization, and the software will allow you to, capture all the PPAP outputs. I'm just showing you a PPAP list here. It could be all the APQP documents, artifacts that could be change controlled and revision control, meetings, gate reviews, everything that you need around managing an APQP program and a launch is available here for you. Okay. Now, I'm showing a program view, but if your organization is smaller and you're just working on small projects, you could also have just projects that actually has the same capability. Now, where is the time saving? Let's say, imagine you are able to, create a project and you manage a project. You're setting all the approval routes, the revision control requirements, the routing requirements. Now, you don't have to do this every time. You could templatize it, and then, anytime you have a new project or a program, you could actually launch it out of that template. Now, any project management tool will provide you this, deliverable tracking. But the way what we have, at Omnex, what we have thought through is that we have aligned this to the APQP AS9145 requirements, making sure that the document when you launch a project or a program out of this template, you would have actually all the document approval requirements defined, configurable. They are configurable, so you can define them. You can define the duration of these projects. You could say you can add the templates that you want. All that could be pre-configured, and then you can reuse it. Okay. Now, going back to the actual development of the artifacts itself, today I'm going to focus on some of those documents, if not all, in the interest of time, where you could have all your products available. You can, have them stored as your favorites, or you can see them as, overall product structure. And when you open any of these documents, you could actually see the DFMEA's test plans all available. So you can see all the different DFMEA tools. There are other design tools that, that's being used in other industries that are available for you. If you would like, you can use them. But if you look at this design FMEAs, in most of these, documents are designed so you are, getting to, having a shorter learning curve. You're using Excel-based, look and feel. And, most of these are also table-driven. So if you are able to double-click on that, you'll be able to pick from a list. Okay. There's a master list, and of course, if you have the permission, as you fill this document, you could, you can, add it to the master list. Another big thing about, sharing information through these tools is having these DFMEA key and special characteristics. You can identify them, categorize them, and the same characteristics list is something what will be shared with the process team. Okay, so you'll be able to manage them, and also this tool will be able to ensure that these characteristics are there in the control plan, available in the work instruction, and also as part of your inspections. Okay. Here's the view of the test plan. They're all linked So when you make a change in one of the document, all the related documents will change. Okay, so they all link together. That's a big deal that Craig mentioned about when he presented of having all these document links. So you save a tremendous amount of time, not just the time, but also error avoidance. There are a lot of reporting that you can get out of the test plans. You can see a process flow, and if you notice here, I see the same key and critical characteristics that I've identified in my design is listed here. So the design team and the process team will be able to share the characteristics. Now, one of the questions may be like, okay, do I need to have the DFMEA to have the characteristics list? No, I mean, the software will allow you to, if you're just process responsible, manufacturing responsible, you'll be able to just start building process flows, PFMEAs, and control plans. Again, the same idea that the documents are linked together. If you are adding a new operation here, you will be able to, include your characteristics information. And when you get to the PFMEA, you'll see that the information that you created in the process flow has actually automatically updated the PFMEA. Can you see that? So the documents are live linked, and any change in one document will reflect across the board. So now you could continue to fill the additional, information like the characteristics, the failure modes, and these columns that you see in any of these are configurable. You could add additional columns. You can create them and configure them to the need that you would like. When you get to a control plan, because of the way how these documents are all linked together, when you finish your process flow and PFMEA, 70% of your control plan is auto-populated. Okay, so the only piece of information you're filling here would be the gauges, the sample size, frequency, and also the reaction time. Okay, we don't stop with this. You can also extend this to work instructions. So if you open your check sheets, you'll be able to see all your check sheets. And this is just for op20, and then I can open one of the work instructions to see how all these documents are, linked. So you can build work instructions out of a control plan. And the centerpiece of any work instruction is actually the control plan information. You could add work sequences, different pictures, you can add pictures. And the centerpiece, you can see the control plan information with all the control methods, the characteristics, the classification, and so on. Again, these are configurable to what your today's work instructions look like. And they are also having multilingual capability. Now, so what I just showed you is, the capability of all the documents being linked, sharing information, DFMEAs and PFMEAs connected. I showed you the idea of characteristics linkages. If you are both design and process responsible, the DFMEA and PFMEA could also have a handshake and share information. Now, it's not just building these documents just for one product. We have the idea of family of thought, and Craig will, talk about the reuse and the benefit of these reuse in this later part of the presentation. We organize information as family of parts, where you are able to define everything that is common for this particular. All these parts could be, created at the family. So the common information is available at the family, and then when you get to the part level, they automatically inherit all the information that we created in the family. So if you notice, I created something at the family post-assembly, and without you typing a single keystroke, the software automatically has inherited the information from family to part. So all commonality, of common products and product information that you have could be defined at the family. And, whatever personalization that you want to create at the part level, will be able to define it. Now, I could add additional information. I could say that this is maybe an inspection before it goes to the next level. So as you create this document, you're also not just filling the process flow. Remember, you're also filling the FMEAs and control plans. But I made some of these changes. The changes are just specific just to this particular part. Now, this change that I made for the host assembly Y series will not change the host assembly family. So let's go back and look at the host assembly family. You would not see the changes. You'll not see an inspection, and you'll not see the additional characteristics that I added. Okay, so it's an inheritance of information from family to part, and at the part level, you could personalize it. Now, one of the things that our customers who have successfully launched AS9145 using our software, they like the capability that they are able to see what's actually getting inherited from family and what is best specific just to this part. Okay, so with a click of a button, they say, well, I'm able to see that family information that I have actually used in the product and what are just specific just to this particular part that I'm able to use. Okay, there are other reusable capability where you can define your entire set of libraries, and from that libraries you can pick and choose and build a product. The goal behind all this is that, and in fact, you would see one of our case studies by one of our customers. They save about more than 50% on implementing, software tools for driving AS91 implementation within their organization. 50% is their savings by implementing these systems. Now, the other part of this is that just not building these documents, you would also need a system where you're able to manage all your fracas, right? So a solution that help you document all the concerns, initially evaluate the concern, and also conduct problem solving. In the interest of time, I'm going to just show one of those completed concerns that I have here. I'm able to see what was the concern, what was reported, and after initial, this is what the was sent to me by the customer, or my support team has put it together. I'm able to look at the 8D, so you can actually create an 8D not as an attachment or as a document, but actually as a live form. You'll be able to see all the 8D information. It's live, and we also provide you with having all the tools, with you to be able to say it's a 5Y or a 5W2H. This is not in D4. These are all the tools that I could use to actually come up with completing my 8D. So when you finish one of these documents, all the related documents are automatically completed. Okay, so you could see fishbone and so on. So now this is not limited just to 8D. There are different types of approaches available. You could pick and choose any one of these as you need. Right? Now, it's not just completing the problem solving, but we also provide a tracking solution where you can track the deliverables of the 8D and where it stands. You can define deadlines. Throughout the entire platform, you'll be notified about the progress of any deliverable and action, and also you'll be reminded about your action. And if your work is not getting done, you'll also see actions, escalations that's built in that notifies your boss about the work that's been not done. Right. So with that said, we're talking about an overall comprehensive tool that could help with your entire AS9145 implementation. There's more to this. So for example, you could actually have like your voice of customer, that's something what Craig was mentioning there. Right from voice of customer, you should be able to capture your requirements. You should be able to flow those requirements between your system, subsystem, and component. One of the popular things that that the automotive industry uses is the V model, and there's a strong adoption also in the aerospace industries with the customers that they work, where you're able to flow the requirements between system, subsystem, components, identify requirements free, and also failure keys in the system. And part of digitalization, another interesting piece is that you build all these PPAP, documents, an artificial intelligence platform that can actually analyze all your PPAPs or the quality of the PPAPs before our FAIs before you submit to your customers. One of the benefits of that is that it uses the machine learning algorithm, so you can schedule it, and then whenever PPAP is ready, the bot will analyze the PPAP and it'll give you a report. What is the quality of the PPAP that you're ready to submit. Now, you could also extend this with your supply chain. I mean, everything what I showed you or presented. Something what you could not just implement within your organization, you can explain it to your supply chain for artificial intelligence to review your supplier PPAPs or submission. A problem-solving tool for working with your supplier corrective action, a program management tool for managing your suppliers. We have an audit tool for managing audits. So an integrated platform would go from managing requirements to your design documents, to processes, to inspections, all your new product launches, forecast and problem solving, MSA and dashboard, and of course an AI that could actually help with reviewing PPAPs. Time for poll 3. I will pause here for a second. You could type in your questions, and we'll be happy to pick it up towards the end of the presentation. Poll 3 here, you'll see that could digitalization of APQP activities help in your organization, and do you see the value and the benefit of using a platform or a software solution that could help with you managing and driving the AS9145 implementation. Okay, so I see about 82% have voted with the idea that yes, that a solution platform like this will help it. So if you are, it doesn't matter which stage you are in today in terms of, implementing AS9145. Even if you're considering it, I would say think of a platform. So when you start the journey with the tool, or if you're already even in midway of implementation, or have successfully implemented, you would still be able to adopt a tool because it'll help you sustain the implementation that you've done so far. With that said, Craig, why don't you bring in the idea of why we need APQP and what is the big payoff of that?
Okay, and I agree. The digitalization, one of the big things it helps with is, I remember when I first got into quality in aerospace, the rule of thumb was the parts did not ship until the paperwork outweighed the parts. So to try and get away from that digitalization really helps. But the big question now is why APQP, right? What's the big payoff we get out of it? First of all, the two big things that we get, there we go, is the enhanced design for manufacturing, right? It helps design those parts from the beginning so that they're easy to make and easy to assemble. The goal is making that manufacturing process as simple as possible and as efficient so that you can actually produce them on time every time and make sure that they're good products. The other thing it helps design that better design for assembly, right? To enable those assemblers to do their job in the most efficient and productive manner that they can, while still maintaining, zero defects. One of the other things is it really helps with better key characteristics management. A lot of organizations struggle on key characteristics, what they are, what they're not, how do we track them, right? So just a little bit about that. Key characteristics, they're not key performance indicators. Okay, they're not process performance related. Are we getting, are we doing the things we're doing? Are we hitting our on-time delivery? That's not what a key characteristic is. Right? Key characteristics are not system parameters, right? Load times, temperatures, those types of things. They're not manufacturing tolerances on the drawing. Okay, what now? So the key characteristic is not necessarily the manufacturing tolerance on the drawing. What it is it's actually that feature on the drawing, or that feature with the product, or that functionality of the product is key in the next higher assembly, or in what the product that the end user has or gets. Right? That's what those key characteristics are. So what the APQP process does is it actually drives you to account for all the internal and external KCs that are both related to the product and the process, and making sure that those are communicated and understood from the time raw material comes in the front door to the time that the parts ship out the back door. Okay. So identifying those key characteristics is one of the other big things. So some opportunities and leverage within aerospace, right? So right now, the focus is dependence on layers of test and inspection, right? Aerospace parts are probably the most over-engineered and over-inspected parts on the planet, right? Typical parts might get inspected 5 or 6 times before they leave the facility. Right? But we're trying to move to a risk analysis and prevention, right? Planning for those things, mitigating those risks, putting the error proofing up front, those types of things to make sure we don't have bad products, to eliminate some of those inspections that we have to do and testing that we have to do, which frees up other resources for other activities. Okay. There's a lot of reliance right now on qualification testing instead of preventative design controls, designing the prevention in. Right now, we also rely a lot on the first article inspection report. Well, hey, we've built 5,000 of these. Yeah, but we did a first article 6 years ago. We're still good, right? Nothing's changed. It's not always necessarily the case, right? But AS9145, it includes those AS9102 first articles, but there's more to it than that to make sure your parts stay good and always good. It also purchasing focuses on low-cost producer. How many times have we seen suppliers say, well, we switched to this supplier because I could save $2 a part, right? But it caused other issues that now end up going above and beyond that $2 a part, right? So 9145 and APQP really helps develop that supply chain management and their processes. And then the other one is, reactive supplier management. Right now, we react to when suppliers have problems, versus 9145 helps you identify the potential problems ahead of time so you can put controls around them so you don't have as big a hiccup when there is a problem. So a little bit about addressing the pushback, right? You try and go to your top management, or if you are top management, you try and go to your board, your CEO, whoever may be, general manager. You're always going to get some of that, well, you ain't got time for that, or you're always going to get some types of pushback, right? So there's really 7 motives for not only putting in an APQP program, but making it a digital one. Right? That manual APQP process is very extensive, exhaustive, and it takes a lot of time if you're doing it manually. Some of that stuff Anthony showed you, everything ties together. You can click on one thing and it pulls up, all of your documents associated with it, or you type some information in and on this page and it populates your PFMEA, it populates your control plan. So it makes updating documents a lot easier as well. So not only is it, exhaustive to do them the first time, but if you ever have to go back and make any changes, right? We always have changes in aerospace. Things always come up. We do continual improvements. We have engineering change notices. But how often do we always forget to update 1 or 2 documents? Right? That digitalization helps do that. Right? Economical factors a lot of times can hinder additional resources for APQP, whatever that may be. Having a need for tracking your APQP activities. Making sure that you have a better defined linkage between all of the different APQP phases. right? It's a lot easier to do in the digital platform, having that linkage there rather than word of mouth. Also tracking the deliverables, right? It tracks the deliverables for each phase as well as each project, right? That way that eliminates one person just having, 18 different action item lists on their laptop. Right? So it also adds value to the phase gate reviews, right? Because you know those risks ahead of time. And then the biggest thing is it really gives you greater communication over the entire APQP project, right? So these are just some different things that would motivate me if I was in an organization to go to a digitalization version of APQP rather than the manual version. Because like I said, AS9145 is going to become auditable probably from what I'd heard from some of the industry players is it was going to be more sometime in 2021, but I think with the way the year went in 2020, it kind of got slowed a little bit. So I would say around the first part of 2022, it's going to become a requirement. So you're going to have to do it. Digitalization is going to make it that much easier to do. Right? So along with that, there's actually some ROIs to help drive that digitalization. Right? There's no need to hire additional resources, which can save you about 50% of a manual APQP program. It can help decrease completing those documents by up to 75%, where everything's linked together and you populate one and it populates the other documents associated with it, really reduces that time spent on paperwork. It can also help reduce your shop floor errors with standardized process controls. It helps the amount of tracking with all the functions and deliverables that are associated with APQP. If you've read AS9145, there are quite a few deliverables for each phase. Tracking those in a manual document system is going to take a lot of time and effort, which you could probably save about 35% in document control costs going digital as well. It does improve your gate reviews, right? Eliminating those APQP errors. Like I said, trying to make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted for a PPAP project, before you submit your PPAP, making sure those errors, because you want those PPAPs approved the first time, every time when you send it to the customer. It can also help you, have a reduction of about 30% in your customer complaints, as well as how long it takes you to get them a response with that standardized and digital problem solving. It adds some value and some time savings in just the reporting time of all the different mitigation strategies, right? If I have 5 or 10 action items on my laptop and my colleague down the hall has 6 or 7 action items on his, how long does that take for trying to put all that information together and reporting it up? Takes quite a bit of time, right? And then 20% waste reduction, right? By trying to improve the communication over the entire project or throughout the entire facility, you can really reduce how much waste goes on, how many times you have to rework things, and because how many times have things gotten to shipping and there was an ECN that wasn't ever incorporated because the lack of communication, the ECN did not get flowed through to production or out to shipping. So now I got parts sitting on the dock waiting to leave that are missing a feature that needs to be there. So just a little bit of summary. APQP and PPAP really helps drive down your PPM levels, or we call it our scrap rate or our rework rate, right? Or your cost of poor quality. We don't use a lot of PPM. Not a lot of aerospace companies use PPM, so it might be a little misleading, but we've all heard cost of poor quality, right? So it also helps with the gate reviews within your APQP project, making sure that your projects are done on time. right? And the tools like DFMEA, PFMEA, MSA, and capability studies help, like I said, reduce those risks. The more risks we know about up front and the better controls we can put in place early on, the less heartache and time and money and everything else and firefighting it's going to reduce all that on the back end. And like I showed you with AS9100, AS9145 is very complementary to your existing QMS process. Okay? Now, your teams are going to need some training in some of the different tools that go into it, like FMEAs, control plans, MSA, SPC. Those are a lot of tools that not a lot of aerospace suppliers utilize those. And if you do some of them the wrong way, it's going to cause more problems and be less beneficial than, spending a little bit of time and effort up front and learning how to do it, right? It won't be as successful. Some of the software tools like Omnex is the software that Anthony was showing you in the demo is ideal for management of all of your APQP projects or a variety of other quality related or business related activities that you do. And really a good document control software tool helps with that linkage. It's really indispensable for, like I said, the biggest one is just making sure everything gets updated when you make a change. Right? So Anthony talked a little bit about some of the Omnex systems. These are a lot of the digitalization products that we have, pretty much for every standard that's out there. I don't think there's very many that we don't have something around or that we can't customize to, right? Even internal ones. This is just a little bit of our whole enterprise-wide quality integrated management system, APQP manager, which is some of the stuff Anthony showed. We also have Doc Pro, we have Audit Pro, we have Problem Solver, so different things like that. And Anthony touched on some of those. And I think somebody asked the question, are these available to the customer? Feel free to reach out. I think there was a couple of links sent out within the question or within the chat box that you can go to for more information and that kind of stuff. Omnex also has virtual and remote training available. With the world we are in today, we used to travel quite a bit. Most of our classes are now virtually. Implementation and things like that, there's still a lot done on site, but there is some virtual. But we do have virtual classrooms. We do remote learning through Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting, a variety of the different platforms. So this is just some upcoming aerospace classes that are coming up, whether it's AS9100, AS9145. For those at the beginning that said they haven't heard a lot about it in AS9145 or you're not really sure what it is, we do have those understanding classes as well down there at the bottom. It is like a 2-day class. It's not, too drastic. There's no test. I will put that out there, right? Everybody loves that. No, there's no test, yeah. These are just some different aerospace courses that are offered as well. I won't spend a lot of time on those. Like I said, Plan Tech, which I'm over Plan Tech. We do have, specialized staffing. We do supply chain auditing and assessments and product and process improvements. So that is all. We are right at the top of the hour, but there was a few questions. Let me pull those up. Okay. So somebody asked earlier if the software was available, and then there was a second part to that question. Does it apply to build-to-print shops or design only? It applies to both. It doesn't matter. Whether AS9145 and how you use the digitalization doesn't matter whether you are design responsible or not, because like I said, you're still going to be responsible for your process design. So the same things are going to apply. It just might not be as heavily involved in what you have to put together as part of your APQP program if you don't have design, right? kind of like AS9100, right? If you're not design responsible, you get to take out all of 8.3. So let me see. There was a couple of questions in the chat, I think. Okay, so Anthony sent a couple things out in the chat. Oops.
Yep.
I clicked on the link. The link works, everybody. Just so you know, I accidentally just clicked on it. So.
All right. So one of the questions I see is this something? What do you have to buy? The whole solution. No, the answer is that you don't have to buy the entire solution. What we showed you, it's modularized. So you could always buy them in parts, and depending on where your current problems are or where you want to focus as part of the. So this is a whole solution for AS9145. But let's say you want to have a little bit focus on maybe say like say program management or project management, or maybe you want to just focus on best in class FMEA development. You can pick those modules of your choice and then implement them. And a typical implementation, would be, depending on the size of the organization, anywhere between, 2 months to 6 months, depending on the size of the organization, the size, the number of plans that you want to implement and roll out, and of course, it comes with the train the trainer. The case study link that both Craig and I mentioned, I've shared it on the chat, so feel free to download and see. One of the organization, the aerospace organization, how they actually leveraged on not the entire solution, but just one of the products, and how they were able to save money and time in their implementation process. Okay, I think most of the questions were answered live on chat. But Craig, in the interest of why don't you maybe talk about that one question that was asked? When is it probably expected?
Okay. Yes. So the question was asked: when is this probably going to be a auditable requirement? Some of the folks I know that are at Boeing and Triumph Group and Parker Hannifin, and some of the bigger companies, as well as some of the guys I know that are part of the AS9145, the IAQG. From what I've been hearing from them, they were shooting for like fourth quarter 2021. That was before the COVID and the world that we live in now, right? So right now, the talk is they're trying to shoot for quarter one of 2022. And we all know as soon as Boeing says, this is what we're doing, everybody needs to be certified or have an AS9145 program in place. As soon as that happens, it's going to snowball through the industry like wildfire. Right. So that would be my guess, is if you're looking at whether or not you need to implement this and you're looking at what you need to do, I would honestly suggest and recommend I would have it in place no later than the first quarter of 2022. So. Does that help?
Yep, thank you, Craig. I think that's all we had time for today, and we'd like to thank you all for being part of this webinar. There are more webinars coming up, and you'll see that in our websites, and we'll look forward to talk to you again. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you, Craig. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks, Miles.